So I put a little quote up there, and it says, "Tell me and I'll forget, show me and I'll remember, but involve me and I'll understand," which I think is very appropriate for apprenticeships, because we want people to be involved as they're engaged in learning. So in this session, what we're going to look at are some different ideas. Who are Generation Y? Lots of people here from Gen Y. What influences them, what learning styles, how we communicate with them, and how we connect and retain them. So a little bit about Gen Y and how they learn, but what I'd like to get from you first is looking back. And just on your tables, what I'd like you to discuss is the best thing that happened to you last week and the worst thing that happened to last week. Good and bad things happen to us. Doesn't mean to say that we can't learn from them, because Gen Y, and most of you guys, the younger folks, are Gen Y, have ways that they learn that are quite different from the people who are employing you. And this is because the Gen Y is influenced by quite a wide range of people who are their peers. So they will ask opinions of their peers before they really consult adults or other folks. So I think you need to take that into account, that the importance of peer acceptance is very important. Gen Y is very pragmatic, so don't faff around with them, be practical and to the point. They do identify their preferences. Believe it or not, Gen Y has some very strong values, and they are around their career and their environment. So there needs to be for them some sort of relational connection. That means that tell them what you're doing is going to be part of a bigger picture. Okay? They like the bigger picture. All right? And their last one is trusted guidance. So don't bullshit with them. That's really important. You need to be straight, because they expect straight. Okay? So truth and honesty and being able to develop a trusting relationship is probably paramount to building a good working relationship. Now, that's not just for Gen Y. I could probably argue strongly for my people who I'm teaching to be managers, but particularly with Gen Y. And I've got an activity here that I did with the other group that I taught down at the Bulldogs Club. And we looked at how learning at school was different than what learning at work is, which is, tell me, give me an example of why learning at school is better than learning at work. Is there any examples that you can give me?
Danger risk, I guess.
Okay, expand on that for me.
Like at school, you're not going to get hurt if you stuff up.
Okay. That's a very good observation, that at school, learning is taking place in a fairly safe environment. Okay? Theoretically, apart from bullying and emotional things. But yeah, from a physical point of view, reasonably safe. Good point. Another one, please. Learning at school.
Different pressure.
Okay, now, tell me, is it academic pressure? Is it peer pressure? What sort of pressure?
Probably time.
Time. Okay, so at work, we have more pressure to perform in time. Okay, yep. Okay, can you give me another example of work learning? Because that was a good example of work learning. Work learning, you get shown, you have a job to finish, and there's pressures of time. Okay, another work one.
You pay for it.
Well, yeah, pay is important. But their observation was, interestingly enough, that the people that are teaching them at work might not necessarily be good teachers. Okay, so now that's an interesting point. Their observation was that at school, they had a pretty clear understanding that those folks had been through some sort of process to make them into a teacher. But when it comes to work, we have business people who are very good at their business and their trade, who may not necessarily have developed those teaching skills. So that's an observation that the other folks gave me. So very interesting concepts about what's important as far as learning is concerned, and understanding that there are real differences between the pressure that you're on at work to get the job done to a standard, okay? So all those exams that they made you do at school, those bloody tests that they're always giving us tests and putting us under pressure. Well, that's, believe it or not, is preparing us for what happens in the real world. So, what we have to do is learn to communicate better. And one of the ways is for us to understand that the way we learnt our trade is not necessarily the way that Gen Y will learn. Okay, and I'm going to give you a handout about that. So what you need to do is make sure you have some understanding that Gen Y is real and they connect in real time. Who uses social networking as a communication tool here, please? Put up your hands. Social networking, Facebook, Twitter. Come on, you all have to be on Facebook. Okay, there's any older folks who have a Facebook connection? One, all right. Interesting. The way that Gen Y communicates is pretty raw, it's pretty upfront, there's not a lot of secrets, and it has to be relevant to them. Okay, so I mentioned this before, that when you're explaining something, make it real, make it relevant. Because this generation has grown up with a lot of spin. Okay? Since they were born, they have been surrounded by media, they have been surrounded by public relations people who spin things, and they're very good at discerning what's real and what's not. So be aware of that. Any questions about this, folks? Language? Do we have miscommunication of language between employers and employees? Did anybody watch Media Watch last night about the 30,000 pigs in the flood? No? Okay. The story is, it's related to a colleague of mine, that there was a headline that said that the floods had carried away 30,000 pigs. But when they did the research and went back to the real story, it actually was 30 sows, as in females, and pigs. So in the communication, it got, instead of 30 sows and pigs, it went into 30,000 pigs, which made for a crazy headline. All right? So give me an example of something that the younger generation, the Y-Gen, is talking about and they're getting blank looks from their employer. Can the employers give me an example, perhaps?
When they ask a question and answer it themselves.
Okay, okay, okay. Can you give me an example of that?
Example. Well, we cop a few times at work in the mornings sometimes when we're sitting around having our meetings. One of the apprentices might ask about laying a drain or something like that, and all of a sudden they'll think, oh, I've learnt that at school, and they tell you the answer as well. So before you get to answer them, they've already answered themselves.
Okay. So how are you dealing with that?
Well, we explain to them that either you ask the question and we'll give them the answer,
yeah.
Or if they're happy with what they know, why ask in the first place?
Okay, okay. So is it a matter of them perhaps having that validated by you and you saying, yes, you're spot on, thank you.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's what they're looking for.
Yes, because this generation, this generation needs attention. Okay, so don't be afraid to say, well done, thank you, give them attention, I'm proud of you, because most likely they have grown up with a number of people who are constantly telling them that they are God's gift, and that's the reason why they need to have that reinforcement constantly. Okay, so don't be afraid, because it will help them to integrate, and it will help them to feel that they're appreciated and contributing.